A settlement rolls back Florida's so-called Don't Say Gay law. You're listening to The Wrap from 90.7 WMFE News. I'm Brendan Byrne. A legal settlement reached this week is rolling back large parts of the Parental Rights in Education law, what critics have called Don't Say Gay bill. It clarifies what is allowed in Florida classrooms following passage 2 years ago of the law prohibiting instruction on sexual orientation and gender identity in early grades. Nearly 2 years after the lawsuit was filed, plaintiffs are applauding the decision.
And I see a huge success and a huge win. I think the largest win is that my kids can go to school and talk about their parents.
Governor Ron DeSantis is also calling the settlement a win. WMFE's education reporter Danielle Pryor joins us to dive into the implications for educators and the possible future of other laws targeting the LGBTQ community. That's ahead on The Wrap. The big stories this week from 90.7 WMFE News. But first, these headlines. Orlando commissioners are expanding the Community Violence Initiative Program, or CVI, which uses peer mentorship to reduce local gun violence. Commissioners approved allocating a grant of $1.5 million over the next 3 years, allowing the program to expand into the Signal Hill, Richmond Heights, and Lake Man neighborhoods. Abe Morris is the Youth and Families Division Manager for the City of Orlando. He says reducing gun violence is a matter of investing in more mentors who are connecting directly with those most at risk.
As conflicts come up, they're able to de-escalate those conflicts between rival groups and prevent reciprocal or retaliatory gun violence on a daily basis. And from the data points that were entered in, there was 241 conflicts mediated over the year.
The program began in November of 2022 and had a successful pilot year with a 20% reduction in firearm homicides. The expansion of the program is effective immediately, and the city is now in the process of hiring more staff. The U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs says it's making more veterans with toxic exposure eligible for health care now instead of phasing in its coverage over the next 8 years. As WMFE's Joe Burns reports, the VA health system in Central Florida is undertaking an all-out effort to get them screened.
200 veterans signed up for a PAC Act event at the Lake Baldwin VA Clinic on Friday. Dozens of VA staffers were there to help with everything from benefits to screening for toxic exposure. Timothy Cook is CEO of the Orlando VA healthcare system, where more than 100,000 have been screened and 46% found eligible. He's urging veterans not to wait.
And let's add as many people to our healthcare system as are eligible and capable of coming to the VA, and that will give them the best healthcare that they can get. Because that means that now we've identified something that could possibly impact their health long term today, versus waiting until something happens.
76-year-old Vietnam veteran Dennis LaCour remembers being doused with Agent Orange from a plane flying over like a crop duster. LaCour says he receives VA benefits, but his Agent Orange exposure wasn't addressed until now.
Well, I'll tell you, it makes me want to cry because I know some of my friends who died from this, and they were a lot younger.
Veterans or their survivors looking for more information can visit va.gov. Joe Burns, 90.7 WMFE News.
Brightline is bringing a new high-speed rail station to Cocoa. City leaders voted to designate $5 million towards a new station at a meeting this week. The station will be built in the area of State Road 528 and US 1. Brightline says it's ready to begin the formal process of building the station and has started to identify potential federal, state, and local resources for a station to be located in Cocoa. Samantha Singer is the Director of Communication and Economic Development for the City of Cocoa. She says the development of a new rail stop will be an economic boost to the area.
We're excited about being a multimodal hub for our region. We have beaches and the Space Center and our booming cruise port, and all of these opportunities with the space industry, it can bring so many different opportunities to our region.
This new station comes after Brightline extended service connecting Miami and Orlando in October of last year. These stories and more on our website. Visit WMFE.org. The CDC director was back in Orlando this week working to build trust and greater partnerships with local health leaders.
That is what 2024 looks like for the CDC, so we're going to keep working for folks and protecting health and improving lives across this country, and I'm grateful to see it here in the Orlando area.
WMFE's health reporter Joe Mario Pedersen has the details of that visit to Pine Hills. That's on our website. Visit WMFE.org. A settlement has been reached that effectively rolls back parts of Florida's parental rights in education, or what critics have called the Don't Say Gay law. The law banned instruction around gender identity and sexuality. WMFE's education reporter Danielle Pryor has been following this story this week, and she joins us now to discuss our reporting. Danny, welcome.
Thanks for having me, Brendan.
And let's start with the settlement itself. What is the outcome of what happened this week?
Sure. So basically, it clarifies the language of the law, which was pretty vague. And teachers and students can now feel free to write about and express themselves when it comes to gender identity and sexuality in classrooms throughout the state. So that might include, making a reference to gender identity or sexuality in like a class discussion or a homework assignment. Teachers can put up those safe space stickers again in their classrooms, and they can even put up photos of their partners. Schools can reinstate gay-straight alliances and anti-bullying programs. For a while there, schools were even unsure whether kids could come to prom in clothes that kind of aligned with their gender identity. So this gives so much clarity. And then the books, I forgot about the books, but you can have books with gay characters again or gay people in them. Those are also allowed back in schools. So lots of clarity this week on the law.
Clarity in the law, and essentially it guts a lot of the major bullets of this law, right? Which Governor Ron DeSantis signed back in 2022. He championed this law. But despite that, he's still calling this a win. Why?
Because the law was not overturned or repealed, it's still in effect. So it means that still in Florida schools, you can't directly, talk about or teach about gender identity and sexuality. That's still not allowed. So it is a win for him in a sense, because you might remember that DeSantis really used this as his rallying cry with his, constituents and his base, and also in his battle against, Disney and, shall we say, the district formerly known as Reedy Creek. So it's a law that's been used a lot for political purposes, let's say, for him, for his administration. It was kind of the reason why there's been a lot of educational policy changes made in our state. So AP African American history was banned because there was a unit on queer theory, again, going back to this law. We have sociology that can no longer be used as a core curriculum course for undergrads in Florida because it talks about human sexuality, again, going back to the law. So the law is still in effect, and a lot of the policy decisions that have been made because of the law are also still in effect.
So the law is still in effect, the policy decisions are still in effect, but still people are applauding this decision. Through your reporting, you've spoken with parents and teachers. What are they saying about this settlement?
Yeah, so I spoke with Andrew Spar of the Florida Teacher Association, which is our state's largest teachers union. And he says it's really a relief, Brendan, because for so many years, teachers and schools were afraid to be penalized because they had applied the law incorrectly, but the law was just so vague, they weren't really sure, what constituted, would teachers lose their license if they had a certain book in their classroom, or they taught a certain unit, or, they let kids watch, a certain movie in class, or, for a while, even like theater programs weren't sure whether they could do a musical if it had a reference to LGBTQ people. So it's had this really chilling effect on schools, and especially on teachers and school librarians throughout the state. Because of that, we've seen thousands of books being banned and removed from classrooms. And so again, Andrew Spar just said he's so grateful for the clarity so that folks know how they can still do their jobs.
Students who are part of the LGBTQ plus community should be safe at school, that they should be able to see themselves in their learning. That clubs such as Gay Straight Alliance clubs can continue, all things that were up in the air and teachers and staff and administrators had questions on. It looks like this settlement may actually bring a lot of clarity to that.
Danny, the story broke earlier this week. You've been following it throughout the week, but what's next?
Yeah. So school districts, every single one in Florida, should have received a memo from the Florida Department of Education kind of outlining what the settlement says and how it should be applied, and giving that kind of piece by piece clarity. So, and most likely the case will be dismissed. The lawsuit that we saw that was taken out, I think it was a day after the law was passed in 2022, that case will be dismissed. The settlement is kind of where things stand moving forward. But remember that there's a lot of other anti-LGBTQ and anti-trans measures that still remain in place in Florida. So I know I was speaking with one of the plaintiffs earlier this week who was part of the original lawsuit against the Parental Rights in Education. And she said she hopes their victory really encourages folks in Florida and other states to fight the other laws that are still in place and that haven't been clarified. Things like our state's gender affirming care ban, for example.
That's WMFE's education reporter, Danielle Pryor. More of her education reporting is on our website. Visit WMFE.org. Danny, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Brendan.
That's it for the wrap this week, but stay listening. Next week, Florida's presidential preference primary is underway Tuesday, with former President Donald Trump clinching the Republican Party nomination. What do voters have to say? We'll visit polling locations across Central Florida to find out. This podcast is produced by 90.7 WMFE News with assistance from News Director LaToya Dennis and Digital Director Ryan Ellison. I'm Brendan Byrne. This is The Wrap.